Hi, I'm Beth W., the Common Sense Astrologer, and we are filming an episode for my Holy Shit Beth YouTube channel. Interview everyday remarkable people, and I found Dr. Charity to be a remarkable person, and she's been helping me through my root chakra and I feel like maybe some traumas that I've been through, but we are getting through at the base of us as a woman. I feel like it's important to focus on that we don't give it the time, and I don't think allopathic medicine does enough focusing on that. And so when I heard about her, the womb awakener, I was fascinated, and it's been really eye-opening and very helpful, and I would say profound experience. And so we've made a lot of breakthroughs. Yeah, I wanted to introduce Charity. I think I'd like to call her my vagina chiropractor, if I can say that.
I mean, kind of, you
Right.
know? Yeah, the work that we do here balances the tissues, which is very similar to chiropractic, right? We like balance and symmetry and homeostasis within the spinal structure and all of those tissues. And so it's gaining balance in the actual pelvis and the vagina itself. So, I mean, sure, you can call me that.
When I first thought about this, I thought, you know what, there's anybody who's had trauma down there but is ashamed, or if there's anybody who's had it and not ashamed but maybe they're inside, they feel uncomfortable, they put the shame on themselves to not feel comfortable being able to discuss what's going on down there, or even to be able to achieve orgasms and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I even think motherhood, if our mothers have gone through stuff and it's carried in her root chakra, that this is part of what gets carried along in us ancestry, because we carry everything.
That's right.
Through our mother, not only in her womb but also in her
cellular
base.
DNA.
Exactly.
And actually your mother and your grandmother too.
Yeah.
And a lot of us may or may not know what our grandmother's stories were. But, finally, this generation, we're starting to talk about our traumas and things.
Yeah.
But if you could imagine our grandmother's generation, they never talked about that.
No.
Right? At least mine never did.
Yeah.
I don't really know a lot of their, internal struggles and deeper things. But through this work, I've been able to actually see some of it and help heal some of that in my DNA so that it doesn't have to get carried on.
Yeah. So I feel anybody, I feel like this is just so helpful for really any woman, but also, like you said, it's carried on through generations. I know that my mother had a lot of trauma growing up, but also abuse, sexual abuse, stuff within her family. Mm-hmm. And so it's what part am I carrying along with that? So it's been transformative to kind of help get to the root of the issues, so I don't have to, even though I chose not to have children this lifetime, I just don't think it was ever meant to be. But I feel like, what would I have done to carry on to my children? So it kind of stopped with me, but I feel like I'm doing the work at the base level.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's beautiful because it doesn't matter if you don't have any children or not. Women are such an integrative part of the community that as one woman heals, so does the society around her. And so it's very vital for, not only if you want to be a mother or you have been a mother, but just as you,
right?
Just you, you are enough reason to, gain freedom and gain empowerment in your own body. But then also you're going to have large effects on every other human. Really, right. Not just other women, but anybody around you.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to give a little background on her. She is a passionate, dedicated chiropractor focusing on women's health with over 18 years of experience in the field of body work. She's deeply committed to helping women achieve optimal health and wellness, reclaim their power, and understand their bodies. She has worked with women that have had prolapse, anybody who has got pain with sexual intercourse, or a disconnection with their wombs. And we deserve to feel safe in our bodies, and I just feel like this is just such a wonderful thing that you can offer to women. Mm-hmm. But with my podcast, The Holy Shit Beth, we talk about pooping and orgasms and menopause, and I thought, oh my God, this would be great. Let's talk about women orgasms, because there's not enough talk about it. it's like, I can talk to women that are the next generation above me, and it's kind of like, you do what? Like, you're talking about this stuff? And it's kind of like they're flabbergasted. There was something going on in our family that wasn't really the greatest with my parents, and so I went to live with my grandparents between 4th and 5th grade summer, and I had nothing going on. And one day I was like, my grandpa had this massager, and I was kind of like buzzing around with it, and then it wound up down there. Of course, I had clothes on, but I still felt it, and I was like, then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, oh my God, I think I just came. Like, I was just like, you know,
what
young.
Was that? Yeah.
Oh my God, that felt good. And then, like, oddly enough, I like became obsessive about it.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, I think the same thing happens to men, but on a different level. But guys do it in a different way. And I was just like, oh my God, I got to tell my friends. So there were a couple friends that I did not touch them. I did not see it, but I would explain to them or be like, oh my God, just try this.
Yeah.
So then I feel like, then it's kind of like educating your partners. And I feel like women sometimes get into bed with a man and expect them to know what the hell to do with our bodies. And it's like, the only way we know. So it's like, we have to educate our bodies and not being shameful or like expecting somebody else to know. We have to know our bodies first.
That's right.
And we can also have more than one orgasm too. I feel like
women, we can have many.
Exactly.
We are very blessed with that.
Exactly. So I am curious of like, what was your first experience, if you're okay talking about it? And if I don't want to push you beyond anything, so
yeah,
it's okay. But
you know, I mean, I think it's great to open up these kind of conversations because, I mean, I have these kind of conversations with other women, and I have no shame with, you know, my sexuality or where that started or anything. I've done a lot of healing with all of that. So actually, I got introduced to my vagina through another girl. Boy, this was before she actually lived with us. So my mom was this beautiful human that would, you know, really caretake for other people. That led us into having 3 other girls live with us. And I'm the youngest of 5. And so it was a whole house.
Wow.
And their second to oldest girl, so the middle girl, they were very more risque, right? Just in general. I mean, if you knew more about like their history and different things, I think she had seen more things than I had. And so anyway, she brought me behind the couch, and it was like one of those circle couches, right? Yeah. So there's like that little triangle in the back.
Yeah.
That's where it all went down.
Okay.
And she showed me what she was doing. So she was like laying on her stomach and like putting her fingers together, like rubbing over the clitoris. And I was like, what? You know, it just looks like you're putting your face down and, you know. And so I went home and I tried it, and yeah, same thing. I was addicted. I was doing it everywhere in the house. Yeah. And my parents didn't really know what I was doing. I mean, I would do it right in front of the living room, but it just looked like I was laying on my stomach and just kind of moving around a little bit, you know?
So if you catch your daughters, just like leave them alone.
You know, yeah, they're exploring. But, you know, it's like a newfound sensation that, you know, it really does like burst everywhere in your body. And it's, you know, it's... creates all these different hormones that everyone's looking for anyways, right?
Right.
And so then once they found out what I was doing, you know, then they were like, oh my God, you know, like, you've been doing it right in front of the whole family, you know? And it was slightly shameful.
Yeah.
You know, of like...
Their reaction to it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like they were embarrassed, right? Because again, like, you know, it's just a whole different generation, right? And like the sex talk is like always so awkward. Like, it doesn't have to be awkward. The more that we can open up about these things and make it okay that this is a normal part of life, you know, you just need to have dedicated areas where you you know, have this different time. So yeah, I think I was probably like 6 years old or something, very young. Very young.
And so there shouldn't be any shame, but it's like, where's those timers where people put the stand? I'll be back in 10 minutes, right? Like,
yeah,
leave me alone.
Yeah. But I do think, to go back with what you said, like, you have to create that space to find what your body likes.
Yeah.
And I mean, several women that I've seen in this practice don't even know how to please themselves, right? And having that experience of like not being able to orgasm is, you know, a definable diagnosis, right? It's a very small amount of women who actually can't orgasm. But that just opens my mind up to a ton more questions. Right? What is your overall health background? What is your sexual health background? Have you had any sort of abuse? What was your mother and grandmother's health history like? Right? How many falls or accidents have you had, like, as a child getting into this? Like, is there damage to this region that the neurological tissue isn't being able to be stimulated? Right. Like,
your
how
anatomy.
how many things have we actually tried outside of like medications to help the body just heal and balance itself? Right. So, and honestly, through this work, it's funny because each woman is so different, as we know, right? But between like session 2 to session 5, most women come in here and they're like, I'm having the best sex of my life. Like, my husband just wants to thank you. My partner is like so enthralled. I can feel this more, like the connection with him. He can feel more inside of me. Like, it's definitely like an actual awakening of the womb space. It's wild.
That's awesome. And so I feel like menopause women who, you know, are and postmenopause, when people start to kind of dry up or whatever, I feel like it can also be probably helpful in that way as well.
Absolutely. You know, again, there's just so much that we don't know about women.
Right.
You know, in any stage of their life, really. I mean, we've only been studying women for the last 30 years.
Right.
Women and minorities. Otherwise, it was all white men that we studied. And that's been helpful for some of the time. But obviously, again, we are all so different.
Right.
And especially women. We are just different creatures altogether. So
I was just going to say, in my last interview with Vanessa, who's a naturopath, we talked about this, and it's actually on the NIH website. I don't know what's there anymore, but it does say it wasn't until 1994 that we did testing. They did any sort of testing on women and minorities, and it's because it's our hormone system that makes us complex. And so I feel like messing with the hormones, it can be really unpredictable. And I also feel like the women that maybe can't have an orgasm, sometimes medication. I know I went on something, I don't want to say the name of it, but it was an antidepressant in the early 2000s, and I tried my damnedest to have an orgasm, and I could not come. I could like feel, but it was like, you know, normally you can have that.
Well, that's exactly what an antidepressant does, an SSRI. It makes it so that you're just an even keel no matter where you are. So you don't get excitement. You don't get the lows. It numbs you. Right? When you numb that, to me, that's very scary. That's very scary in my thought process of how the body works, is that it's always talking to you.
Right.
There's a reason why you get anxious in this area. There's a reason why, you know, when you're doing this with your life, it makes you depressed, or maybe you've had these other life experiences that you haven't worked through yet, that like, this is all energy inside of your body, right? I believe that the human body can heal by itself. No matter almost what is going on.
Right.
And if we come back to like the simplicity of it, but when we numb it, you know, when we take just like painkillers and different things, we don't have the signals to understand then, you know, when it's doing better, when the body doesn't actually like these things. And that a lot of women are actually on SSRIs.
I know, a lot,
right?
A lot.
And then they go into menopause, and then, you know, that creates a whole different hormone shift of how they feel, and can create a lot of depression, and, you know, just they feel like a different woman. Because you are turning into a different woman. But, you know, the theory, so I studied through GYNO Chiropractic. My mentor's name is Dr. Danielle Cornelius. And it's a beautiful space that we've held that really helps women to come back to their root, right? And come back to the laws of nature to heal. We are starting to dive more into focused work into like what is menopause and how is it that some women go through menopause so much easier than other women. And I believe it's a lot of like what we do before that shift starts happening.
I believe that. Yeah.
So it's just like anything, you know, like if you want to be an athlete, you got to start working out. You got to start playing the sport that you want to become proficient at and that you want to do really well. So why is it any different from anything else in the body? We have to teach it what like healthy, sustainable movement is like, right? What balance is like, what it feels like to shoot a hoop and make it, right? It's muscle memory no matter what we're doing inside the body. So if we want it to be abundant and work as well as it potentially could, we've got to get some preventative care going on, right? And like you said too, oh my God, I think every woman needs some pelvic floor care because there's just been lots going on with women.
Yeah. Yeah. And supporting so it's kind of like, oh, if I'm irritable, if I'm in pain or something's going on, I don't feel connected to my body. Like, you know, we project that out to other people. And then it just kind of spreads, you know, like if someone's bitchy to you, then it's kind of like, oh, we reflect that. And then it's, and so on and so on and so on and so on, right?
The gift goes on.
So I feel like that's why it's like important to talk about this stuff and be comfortable in your own body. And I guess I want to know is because there's going to be people that are watching this that aren't from here. I absolutely would recommend you. Is there a network of people that do what you do around the country?
So yes and no.
Okay.
Right. There's a lot of great pelvic floor specialists, but our group is not the same as that.
Okay. Okay.
You know, we do some exercises and things, but really it's a chiropractic way of looking at the body, meaning that, and it's not every single physical therapist, so I'm not umbrella-ing,
right.
you know, and so please don't take offense. But it's a lot of like the medical society, right, where they have a diagnosis, here's your regimen of things, and like this is the protocol sort of thing. And yes, there is like science-backed data to say that like 6 hours of a therapy is like the therapeutic dose, right? So that's why like with GYNO chiropractors, we have about 8 sessions or so. But again, each woman can find benefit or still need of care outside of that. But I think the biggest thing is that we're all very trauma informed. A lot of other physical therapists, some have taken some extra classes to hold space for that. But again, we understand that the body does keep the score. And that especially with the root of the woman, she has shoved so many emotions and pain and words that she needs to say and moments that she wishes that she could have run away and she just stood still. Literally that information stores itself and a lot of times it goes directly into the womb, right? So there's many layers to get to that, right? And so we look at it from a kind of a different mindset than just like, here's your structure, right? I mean, we're doctors, and so of course we know all the anatomy. We know how it should be functioning. We know what dysfunction looks and feels like, but it's like a very holistic approach. So it's a growing community, GYNO chiropractors. At this point, it is only female chiropractors that can go into these studies.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so my mentor, she just started teaching. She has like 13, 14, maybe even 15 years of experience. And finally enough women were like, please just teach me. Like, I want to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And so she's been working really hard, her and another woman named Shara, which Shara is in Femtech. And she's working with like Apple and all of these different places, and it's going to be a huge thing. I believe that there is, I'm not for sure if it's fully set up, but once it is applicable to find where these practitioners are, I can get that to you. Yeah. I know that we've got a couple in California, and I want to say like Pennsylvania or something also. So it's a growing community, but it's a niche in a niche. Yeah, of course. And, you know, I mean, I feel that you were kind of meant to do this. I mean, when I look at your chart, I could be like, oh, yeah, she's really? She's got the pussy power, right? So, love
it's fun.
Tell me more.
Well, I mean, I feel like we can get us. I do want to talk about the different orgasms that women can have, right?
Yeah.
So it's not only the clitoris stimulation.
Absolutely.
Like, people talk about the myth of a G-spot, but I can tell you that I dated someone a long time ago, and they made it, their goal to like have me do it, and it did take some effort, and it took some time. It does
take effort with women,
And it was like a mental, to me, it's also kind of a mental game, but a lot of it was releasing and letting go.
Yes.
And then I was just like, oh my God, like you're like just gushing out feet, like, damn. And then, multiple. So it's really fun, like once you know and you kind of have control over it. But I feel like you've got to open up the floodgates, if you will, and understand that it is possible. The question is, how comfortable are you? And to me, that's not the one you can really do by yourself, because it is a weird kind of angle. And I shouldn't say weird, but it has an angle to it that, if you have a partner who's loving and really wants to see you achieve this, I feel like it's really important. And then, once it's done manually, then I feel like it makes having it during sex on the inside, hitting that spot, once you kind of know and you're able to kind of move that way, then you can have those type of orgasms during intercourse. I struggle with clitoris orgasms during sex. Like that's just never been something I've had maybe one or two, but I always feel like it's so important for women to have the clitoris orgasm before sex, my friend. Like really important.
Well, I think the major thing to take home from that is that women need more time.
Yeah.
We are slow creatures. And if you try to rush that, that's why I think a lot of women feel like their vagina is dry. And it's like, well, did you give enough time for that juicy flower to bloom and get ripe and get ready to, have that pollination, if you will?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times men are quick, man. I mean, you like look at them and they're ready, and some women are like that too. But again, there's big differences and big varieties of women. But for the most part, women just need to relax, right? Feel very loved and cared for. I've got one practice member that she needs like a whole hour and 30 minutes.
A few moments later.
And then and it doesn't have to be all super sexual, having an intimate conversation, just starts these, hormones going and different things. It starts to turn her on. And then, by the time that my God, then that woman, but before she thought, oh, well, I have problems with having sex. And it's like, no, she just didn't know that that was a part of her foreplay, even to have an intimate conversation and then snuggle and then do this and then do that, Yeah. And so for a lot of women, I mean, the clitoris is my goodness, she is a whole organ by herself.
Yeah.
It's actually far bigger than what people thought that it was. It's got thousands of nerve endings. So to stimulate that definitely does arouse very quickly. I don't think that women are so adverse to, women can have an orgasm through, one time I had an orgasm. I was with a woman and she was licking my finger.
Oh, dang.
And I orgasmed. I was like,
dang.
What the fuck?
Look at you.
It's wild. It's wild. But I'm very in tune with my body, and I can sense things very deeply. But can all women do that? I think so. So. Right? So, I mean,
lucky you. I mean, yeah. And I feel like though some of this has to do kind of with our chart, with our astrology, where's your Venus? What turns you on, right? Where's your Mars? Are they compatible, or do they kind of battle against each other? Or, and then your partner, are you Venus and Mars compatible? And then also the moon, what makes you feel good?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I feel like there's combinations of things, and yeah, it's fascinating to discuss this, so I love it. I'm grateful that you took the time to do this. Now, I know that there are some people also, I don't know that much about the anal, but I know that that's a possibility as well for if women can't, for some reason achieve it on the inside, outside, or that.
Yeah, it's much harder.
Yeah.
I would see that that you've got to kind of like the pain sensation with that. There's a lot of fantasy erotica with that. So, I would say if you have to make sure that you're good positioning and feel really great. But I know a lot of women who have great orgasms through their anus.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's less common.
Yeah.
Even, less common than the vagina, which is still very actually uncommon.
Right.
So crazy too, if you want to hear a little story of history.
Yeah.
In the 1920s, if you couldn't have an orgasm with your husband through penetration, it was means for divorce. That's how, needed that it was, I think, for the male species to feel like we're connected. I've applied this love, potion to her, and we're connected in that way. And so the fact that a lot of women were not able to have an orgasm through penetration, they started having all sorts of surgeries to move the clitoris down just a few millimeters.
Yikes.
So that it could actually, be rubbing while they're having penetration. But it didn't really work. Right? Because again, you're cutting off nerve endings and things. So it's not uncommon for you to not orgasm through penetration. I think that just needs to be known.
Yeah.
That don't pressurize yourself if that's not happening for you, but you for sure should not have pain during sex.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's outstanding the number of women who come in here that are having painful intercourse, and they just think that it's pretty normal, but it's not normal. It's a sign that there's something going on that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to know.
And I don't think that's uncommon at all, especially for women who are going through menopause. I think it's actually really common.
Yes.
And
it can be.
Part of it is lubrication. It's and sometimes, if you're sensitive to stuff, what's the best thing? Coconut oil or, saliva, I feel like is some of the better stuff. I'm super sensitive to any chemicals. I'd end up getting some sort of reaction, and it's worse than not, right? And so you got to be careful about what you use. Even if it's anti-allergenic, sometimes I can have a reaction.
Yeah, the microbiome of the female vagina is very particular. She actually is a self-cleaning machine. So, if you can, get her, going by yourself, that would be the best. The lubrication that I use in here is called slippery stuff. It's all organic. There's several ones, but I would kind of test it out before you use it a lot. Because how just frustrating to have an infection of some sort. Or bacteria overgrowth.
I'll get that name, and then we'll put that in a link to that. I was trying to think of the name because I feel like I remember watching a show one time. There was a cable show, maybe on Vice, about women sexual stuff, and I guess back in the 30s, if a woman was hysterical, she could go to her doctor and he would get out a device and stimulate her clitoris to have an orgasm. I'm like, could you imagine right now? And then what would he do after that? Oh, bye.
Yeah.
How, but I mean, it was a thing, and it was manual stimulation or something like that. I was trying to recall the name and I couldn't remember, but it was a thing.
Doctors have done some very questionable tests and services for women to, I think in some ways it was meaning to help. And then if you look far back in the history books, there was a lot of racism and a lot of just categorization without understanding, at least we're asking better questions now. We're being ethical more with it. I'm happy to where we're going, but as a society we still have a long ways to go to understand women
Yeah. And even if like you go to your OB now, it's like, are they going to take the time to like sit down and answer? I feel like when you go in, it's like
so quick.
Go in your stirrups, you know, get the speculum out and okay, bye. Like there's no.
Yeah. Well, and okay, so think about this too. And you know, your first visit with me too, I made sure to tell you like, look, I don't have any stirrups over there. Right. This is a me and you conversation, and the body work is a me and you thing, right?
Absolutely.
But it's really you. I'm helping you, right? Because we've had this experience with our OBs that has been so cold and so like disassociated from our body, right? How many times have you been laying on that table to get a pap smear and you're just like, oh my God, okay, like it's almost over, try to relax, right? And it's like you have to go to like some other place, right? And again, your body learns that, right? And then what if you don't feel comfortable with your partner? Again, oh, it's okay, I know how to dissociate, right? And you know, again, like I understand an OB's got to go in and do what they need to do. They're testing for, you know, good things. But if we could get a little bit more trauma informed with that part, I think it would be super, super helpful. Because that disassociation we get out of our bodies, which is the exact thing that is the opposite of what it means to be a woman. It's literally, you need to be in your body, feel your energy of your body, because your womb does speak. You know, it's kind of like you've got this head brain that she loves to talk. Oh my God, right? And then we've got like our heart and emotions, and then, you know, the energy of like the womb space when she talks, like that's like your wise grandmother. Okay, and she's very like period. Okay, like that's your answer. Sort of vibe. Period. Right? Whereas this mind's like, what if this? What if that? What if this? What if that? Right? But so working with women in this space and just like with their pelvic floor in general, and I'm sure that PTs even feel like this, it's like coming back from that disassociation, right? And being able to spend a little bit of time with them to actually hear their stories. You know, and that's why I think it's important that we have different types of professions, because, you know, they don't have this space to ask us all the questions and things, you know, and to hear the story and to have, I don't know, I still think they could have a little bit more compassion. Because
it's basically, what do they tell you? Oh, this is going to pinch a little bit, or this is going to hurt for a little bit. And oh, it's fine. Like, oh, it's totally normal, you know, that you're having period pain. It's really normal that you're having pain with sex. Like, no, none of these things are normal. And birth control is not the overall answer for women. Period. Anything else come to mind?
Ugh. Oh my gosh, I could talk about this all day, Beth.
We might have to do a part 2.
Oh, I think I just want women to really remember that you are made from nature, and to remember that you work in cycles. So you are multiple women in one cycle, right? We work with the moon. And so it's normal and it's okay. You're not hysterical when you feel like some weeks you've got the freaking most amount of energy and you could climb Mount Everest and you're so heavily focused, and then, you know, the next week you're like, you know, want to be more comfy cozy, and, you know, you want to eat everything, and you are starting to get like a little bit more, you know, on edge. And then there's a winter, right, where we need to go and hibernate, and that's not a time to start new projects. That's not a time to be having big meetings and all these different things. And if we could come back to the nature of ourselves and start scheduling ourselves as we would like a nature system, I think we would have a lot more balance in our hormones, right, when we would work with ourselves instead of trying to show up in other ways that, you know, aren't really natural for us.
And work with the cycles of the moon is so work with the astrology. Otherwise, thinking that you could just keep cranking is like makes us cranky and burn out, and then we get bitchy. Right,
exactly.
So it's just like we need a day to understand and follow cycles. It's so important. If people could get in line with that, that'd be a different world, wouldn't it? I do want to talk about the astrology now.
Yay.
Hi, Beth W. here. I take astrology very seriously, and I believe that it is a powerful tool of insight and guidance. I'm legally required to state that astrological readings provided by myself, ReadingsbyBethW, and Common Sense Astrology LLC, are for entertainment purposes only. Astrological consultations by Beth W. and Common Sense Astrology do not constitute, do not replace, and should not be construed as financial, legal, medical, psychiatric, psychological, or any type of professional advice on any subject matter. If you require such advice, please consult a licensed professional. Myself, Beth W., is not responsible for any damage arising from any actions taken by a client following an astrological reading. Again, these are for entertainment purposes only. Thank you and enjoy.
Because I am a professional astrologer, Common Sense Astrology is my business. My mom, I can be found at ReadingsbyBethW.com. I was looking at your chart, and I do wind up talking about Mars. And Mars is like our energy and our assertion, how we initiate, and also like our testosterone and our dick energy, if you will, like our sexual energy. And yours is sitting next to Pluto, okay, in Scorpio. And this is where I'm like, oh my God, like, if we talk about it, it's like there's Mars, but then Pluto's like the higher octave of Mars, where it's like it gives us the drive and the power and the rebirth. And so when I look at their chart, I'm like,
wow.
How many times do you transform? Do you find that you're transforming all the time?
All the time.
And yeah, I'm like, you can't get away from it. You're like, every time
all the time.
I'm like, oh my God, like this is it's forever that you, and it's all in Scorpio, which is like more intense. So there you've got all this Plutonian energy. So I feel like every time you birth yourself as a rebirth, you are rebirthing everybody that you're interacting with, because it's like there's an evolution that you rebirth into something that is like another incarnation of yourself. So I'm like, this is why I love it, because this is all kind of like sexual, intense, and passionate, and ambition and drive. So it's like, whenever I get into like we have these 2.5 days where the moon will go into Pluto, right, or into Scorpio, and I feel like that gives us this time to research and go deep. And sometimes it's like we can be afraid of it at the same time. It can draw people to you, but also obsessive people. And I'm like, did you ever have a stalker?
Yes.
I was like,
yes, I have. I've had a couple, but one was really bad. I had to get a restraining order. He took me to court, and he had a lawyer and everything. I won.
Do you want to talk? Because I was like, oh my God.
I can talk about it.
Like, as I'm like going through this, and I'm like, I write down all my little notes, and I was like, stalker. I'm like, someone fucking like can obsess with you.
Well, I will say too, in my relationships, many times it's felt like, oh my God, like you're too obsessed with me. Like, have your own life, I very much need my space and things. Like, I know I'm fun and funny and but like, then specifically I did have, I dated this man for a short amount of time, and my intuition was so right. He went on a trip, and he told me that he was going to go meet his brother, actually in Arizona. This is when I lived in Kansas City. Okay. And he was like leaving that night, and I looked him in the face, and we had just barely started dating, right? Yeah. I had no reason to not trust him or anything, but I just said, listen, I trust you. I want you to have a ton of fun. Just don't lie to me. Okay? I will always find out, even if I don't want to. Yeah. Like, you're just going to know. But it's a no-go. Okay? Yeah. If you lie to me, I'm not in it. Okay? Yeah. We're done. Oh, yeah, baby, blah, 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 blah. Right? Cool. So, like, less than 24 hours later, he calls me, and I was at the dog park, and I was working with my dog. She was still having like a lot of problems interacting with other dogs, and so I've got like my headphones on talking to him, and then her interacting, and so we hung up the phone, but I didn't have time to hang up immediately. Right. Okay. Right. I was busy. Yeah, of course. I wasn't meaning to like stay on the phone. But
You did.
what did I tell you?
Yeah.
Okay. And I overheard him going back into this other room. Okay, let's go out boating, blah, 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 blah. And like, let's take shots. And I'm like, okay. So and like his brother was not, it's like very clear that this wasn't with his brother. So anyways, I called him back after about an hour and I was like, listen, we're done.
Yeah.
You're clearly lying to me. Like, what's that big lake here in Arizona that everyone loves to go to? Havasu.
Yeah.
Lake Havasu. And so anyways, I broke up with him. He freaked out. And I found out he took another girl on that trip too.
Damn.
Uh-huh. So anyways, he comes back on a red-eye flight. He actually comes to my chiropractic office, and that's where it begins, okay? And I'm like, what are you doing here? I am in my practice right now.
I'm working.
I literally brought him into the room, and he wouldn't leave until I had to threaten that I was going to call the cops. And then he's, would stalk me outside of my house, park, up the road just so he could see my house. Several different things. And he would call me nonstop. I had to block him. He called me from his mom's phone. He called me from his friends, all these different people. And so I was like, listen, if you try to contact me one more time, I've had enough.
Yeah.
Respect my boundary. This is not cute. I don't want to be with you. This is not leading me back to you.
Right.
And I told him, I'm like, do it one more time and I'm going to create a restraining order against you. Well, what do you think he did? I don't think he thought
you were serious.
Do it.
Yeah.
He was like a double engineer, just all this money, and I think he just thought that he had all the power. And so, anyways, he took me to court. He had a lawyer, and this was during COVID also. So my best friend at the time was in law school, and I really wanted her to be there with me and kind of represent me, but they wouldn't let her. So it was just me and these two terrible men. And they were bringing up my phone records and all these different things, and I had to defend myself. And finally, with tears in my eyes, I'm like, and it was a male that was the judge, and I'm like, what would you say if this was your daughter?
Yeah.
Or your sister?
Right.
I just want to freaking be able to come home and not be having to look over my shoulder. I just want this man out of my life. I've been very clear about this.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I won, and it's now on his records.
Wow.
Yeah, it didn't need to go to all of that, but
yeah, stalker, obsessive. I know, so you can attract that.
okay.
I was like, there's a magnetism. And so, people are going to be drawn to you, but it's kind of
the boundaries.
Boundaries. Big time.
Yeah.
So that is definitely, I was looking at it, I'm like, dang, girl. I was like,
good and bad.
Yeah, exactly. Good. But it gives this drive and ambition. And I was like, well, no wonder why she's a doctor. She's going to keep, getting informed. There's a lot of Sagittarius energy, which again, it's higher education. I need to know more. And it's I can't get enough. And then you rebirth. And then there's another rebirth. So I was like, oh my God, she's living her chart.
Yeah. Oh, that's energizing.
Yeah. And what's also interesting, there's what they call draconic astrology. And it's not necessarily practiced a lot here in North America, but I had a woman who I worked with, Maria Belacqua, I believe is how you say it. She's in, I think, Argentina. And so I took a class with her. And so I was comparing it. And your chart is literally lined up with your draconic chart. And so I was like, okay, she is living out her, she is doing exactly what she's supposed to be doing because they are lined up perfectly. So I was like, this is so cool that you're doing
And you know what?
this.
That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
I feel like, it's been a progression and rebirth consistently. I started out as a massage therapist, did that for many years. And I was just so hungry to understand more. Went and got my doctorate of chiropractic. And now with this womb care, it's I get to expand and bring all of these years of knowledge together.
Yeah.
And then I feel moving forward in GYNO Chiropractic, I really want to be a teacher and helper with that. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, because I feel like I can teach very well, and I'm so hugely passionate about women's health.
Yeah.
And there's such a big space for it. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And I
Yay.
feel like I've evolved just several times just working with you. So it has been a
I
lifesaver.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree,
Hell
girl.
yeah, girl. Hell yeah. All right, so we know Dr. Charity Lenhoff, if I said that correctly.
It is very German.
Okay. And so she practices out of the Source. And then you have your own little awakened wombs. And I think you're a remarkable person, and I'm so grateful that we were able to connect and that you took the time to do this with me today.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah.
This is a fun opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important for us to know, like, because it feels like we're living aligned,
Yeah.
you know, but, you know, we come from nature, we come from the stars, right? And so I feel like what you do is very important as well.
Yeah.
You know, and can really help people feel security or guidance into like what they should be doing. So
Yeah.
thank you for,
You're welcome.
you know, all that you shared with me as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank
Cool.
you.
Holy shit, Beth.